When a woman enters into a relationship, there is often an unspoken temptation to slowly adjust, to bend, to shape herself into what she thinks the man wants. It may start small, a change in the way she dresses, the hobbies she enjoys, the things she talks about, just to gain more of his approval. At first, it feels harmless, even like a natural part of compromise. But if she is not careful, she begins to lose the very essence of who she is. And once you lose your identity, you become a shadow of yourself, existing for someone else rather than living as the unique individual you were created to be. The tragedy is that in the process of trying to keep him, you lose yourself, and ironically, the very uniqueness he was drawn to in the beginning begins to fade away. A man may be attracted to a woman's independence, her confidence, her dreams, but if she sacrifices all of that in the name of keeping him, the dynamic shifts. He no longer sees her as the vibrant woman he first met, but as someone dependent on his validation to feel alive. This is why holding on to your identity is not just a matter of self-respect. It is the foundation of love that is healthy and balanced. Love is not about merging into one person, but about two whole individuals coming together to complement each other, not to erase one another. Losing your identity for a man often shows up in subtle ways. A woman stops pursuing her ambitions because she thinks they might intimidate him. She stops spending time with her friends because she fears he might feel neglected. She hides parts of her personality, her humor, or her interests because she worries he won't understand them. And over time, she looks in the mirror and doesn't even recognize the woman staring back. She wonders why she feels unfulfilled, why she feels empty, why even his presence cannot satisfy her anymore. It is because she abandoned the most important relationship she ever had, the relationship with herself. Every woman must understand that her worth does not come from how much she gives up to keep a man. Her worth comes from standing firmly in her authenticity. A man who truly values you will never ask you to compromise your identity. He will celebrate your uniqueness, not compete with it or diminish it. If he requires you to shrink yourself in order to fit into his world, then you are paying too high of a price for his presence. And the price is your soul, your voice, your essence. That is too expensive to give away. Consider this truth: when you lose your identity in a relationship, you become replaceable. Why? Because you are no longer operating in your true power. You are simply echoing what he wants to hear, doing what he wants you to do, becoming what he expects you to be. There is no spark, no mystery, no individuality. What makes a woman unforgettable is her authenticity, her fire, her difference. When she lets go of that to hold on to a man, she loses the very thing that made her irreplaceable. There are countless women who have given up their education, their career goals, their passions, even their families, just to hold on to a man who never valued those sacrifices. And years later, they are left with resentment and regret because in giving all of themselves, they received nothing in return. This is why protecting your identity is not selfish, it is essential. If you do not protect who you are, no one else will. If you do not fight for your dreams, they will wither. And if you do not stand in your truth, someone else will rewrite your story for you. A man who truly loves a woman does not need her to lose herself for him. He needs her to stand in her own power. He needs her to have her own dreams, her own voice, her own vision. Because it is that wholeness that creates balance. Two whole people create a strong bond. But if one loses herself, the relationship becomes lopsided, draining, and eventually destructive. There is a difference between compromise and sacrifice of identity. Compromise means meeting halfway on matters of daily life. What movie to watch, where to go for dinner, how to share responsibilities. But sacrificing identity means silencing your desires, giving up your vision, and abandoning your sense of self in order to keep someone else happy. That is not love, that is bondage. And no woman was born to live in bondage. Women must remember that they are not created to be extensions of a man's ego. They are created with their own destiny, their own purpose, and their own calling. Any relationship that asks you to give that up is not love. It is control disguised as affection. The most powerful thing a woman can do in a relationship is remain herself fully and unapologetically. Because if he cannot love you as you are, then he does not deserve the privilege of your presence. When a woman holds onto her identity, something incredible happens. She commands respect. She sets the standard for how she will be treated. She teaches the man that she is not desperate for love because she already carries love within herself. She shows him that she is not looking to be completed because she is already whole. And in doing so, She creates a relationship that is not based on need, but on choice. And that is where real power lies. When love is a choice, not a desperate attempt to fill a void. When a woman finds herself begging for love, she has already surrendered her dignity without realizing it. Love was never designed to be chased or pleaded for. It is something that flows freely when it is genuine. The moment you have to convince a man to love you, the moment you find yourself sending endless messages, compromising your values, or waiting anxiously for his attention, you are no longer in a relationship of balance, but in a position of desperation. And desperation is the soil where manipulation grows. When a woman begs for love, she tells him that she is willing to accept crumbs, and once a man knows she will accept crumbs, he will never serve her the full meal. Love is not about pleading to be chosen. True love chooses you without hesitation, without conditions, without you having to twist yourself into knots to prove that you are worthy. If a man cannot see your worth without you begging him, then he does not value you. And when someone does not value you, no amount of begging will change that reality. In fact, the more you chase, the more he runs. The more you plead, the less he respects you. Respect and begging cannot coexist. You cannot inspire love and respect by lowering yourself. You only create an imbalance where he holds the power and you keep fighting to earn what should have been given freely. A woman must never hand over her power in this way, because once you start begging, you enter into a cycle of endless proving. You feel that if you just give more, sacrifice more, or wait longer, maybe he will see your worth. But the truth is, love that is real does not need to be proven. Love that is real does not require performance. It does not ask you to exhaust yourself, to bleed emotionally, or to abandon your boundaries to secure it. When a man loves you, you will not need to question it. His actions will show it clearly. Begging only blinds you to reality. It makes you ignore the truth of his indifference and keeps you trapped in false hope. There are women who spend years begging a man to notice them, to choose them, to stay faithful to them. They write long messages explaining how much they love him. They wait by the phone hoping for a response. They cry themselves to sleep wondering why they aren't enough. And yet, none of those actions bring him closer. Because a man who is unwilling to give love will never give it just because you begged. A man who does not see your worth will not suddenly recognize it because you tried harder. The harsh truth is that begging does not create love. It only reveals how little you think of yourself. A woman's strength is in her ability to walk away from what does not serve her, not in her ability to hold on to what is slipping away. When you beg for love, you turn your power into weakness, and the man you beg from sees it clearly. He may use it to his advantage, keeping you around for convenience, for validation, for comfort, but never offering the depth of love you deserve. And the longer you stay in that position, the more you teach him that he does not need to give you his best, because you will settle for the bare minimum. This is why begging for love is not just degrading, it is dangerous to your self-worth. Love should never feel like a battle where you are the only one fighting. Real love is mutual. It flows in both directions. It is not about chasing someone who continually runs away from you. When you stop begging, you allow yourself to see the truth that you deserve a man who shows up without being asked, who gives without being demanded, who stays without you having to chain him with your tears. You deserve a man who wants to be there, not a man you have to convince to stay. Begging is also a form of fear. It is the fear of being alone, the fear of not being loved, the fear that maybe you are not enough. And fear has a way of disguising itself as love. You tell yourself you are fighting for him because you care, but in reality, you are fighting against yourself. You are silencing the voice inside you that knows you deserve better, and instead you cling to the illusion that if you just do more, he will change. But love does not grow out of fear, and fear cannot hold a relationship together. All it can do is keep you trapped in a cycle of pain. A woman who refuses to beg for love sends a powerful message. She knows her worth. She knows that love is a gift, not a transaction. She knows that attention gained through pleading is not real commitment. She understands that if she has to convince someone to stay, then they were never meant to be there in the first place. And by walking away, she creates space for the kind of love that does not have to be earned with desperation, but is given with freedom. Disrespect is the seed that slowly destroys the foundation of any relationship. It doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes quietly, disguised as jokes at your expense. Dismissive comments when you share your feelings, or subtle actions that show your presence isn't truly valued. The danger is that when a woman tolerates even the smallest form of disrespect, she teaches a man how far he can go. What starts as a sarcastic remark may evolve into neglect. What begins as ignoring your boundaries may grow into control. And what seems like a small compromise in the name of peace may turn into a pattern of being silenced. Disrespect never stays small. It grows with the permission you give it. Every woman must recognize that respect is not optional in a relationship. It is the very foundation on which love rests. Without respect, love is fragile, unstable, and destined to collapse. A man who does not respect you cannot truly love you, because love and respect are inseparable. When he disregards your values, dismisses your emotions, or violates your boundaries, he is showing you that your presence is not cherished, but taken for granted. And when you tolerate it, you send the message that you are willing to live with less than you deserve. Disrespect appears in many forms. It may be words that belittle you, such as calling you names or making you feel small. It may be actions that betray you, like dishonesty, unfaithfulness, or failing to keep promises. It may also be in the form of neglect, when your needs, desires, and voice are constantly ignored. The moment you justify or excuse this behavior, you are training him that this is acceptable. And once a man learns that disrespect is tolerated, he no longer has a reason to offer the honor and consideration you deserve. Some women endure disrespect in silence because they believe that speaking up will push him away. They fear losing him more than they fear losing themselves. But what they don't realize is that tolerating disrespect does not keep him close. It only erodes your dignity and weakens the bond. Respect cannot be demanded through silence. It must be established through boundaries. When you say nothing, you are not keeping peace. You are allowing chaos to rule quietly inside your heart. And the longer you stay silent, the more painful it becomes, because you betray yourself every time you allow him to cross a line without consequence. There are women who stay in relationships where they are constantly insulted, cheated on, or disregarded, telling themselves that it is just a phase, that he will eventually change, that love requires patience. But love does not excuse repeated dishonor. Love does not ask you to accept betrayal, humiliation, or emotional neglect. Love elevates, disrespect diminishes. The moment you confuse the two, you set yourself up for years of unnecessary suffering. When you refuse to tolerate disrespect, you reclaim your power. You remind yourself that you are not desperate for companionship at the cost of your dignity. You show him that your boundaries are non-negotiable, that your voice matters, and that you value yourself too much to allow anyone to treat you with disregard. A man who truly cares for you will rise to meet those standards, because respect is the language of genuine love. A man who does not care will walk away when you enforce your boundaries, but that is not a loss. That is protection. It is the removal of someone who never intended to honor you. Respect is shown not only in the grand gestures, but in the small daily actions. It is in the way he listens when you speak, the way he values your time, the way he considers your feelings when making decisions. It is in his consistency, his honesty, and his willingness to treat you as an equal partner rather than as someone inferior. Anything less is not respect. It is control, manipulation, or indifference disguised as love. And no woman should ever settle for that, no matter how much she thinks she loves him. The truth is that disrespect chips away at your self-esteem. The more you accept it, the more you start to believe that maybe this is all you deserve. You begin to doubt your worth, to question your value, and to silence your own needs. That internal erosion is more dangerous than the disrespect itself, because once you believe you are unworthy of respect, you will stay trapped in cycles of unhealthy love. Breaking free begins with the realization that you are not asking for too much. You are asking for the bare minimum. Respect is not a luxury in love, it is the foundation. There is a dangerous trap that many women fall into when they care too deeply for a man. They start carrying the responsibilities that are his to bear. At first, it feels like love, it feels like support, it feels like being a good partner. She steps in when he falls short, she covers for his mistakes, she pays his bills when he is careless with money, she carries the emotional weight when he refuses to deal with his own struggles. But what seems like an act of love slowly becomes a heavy burden, and over time, she is no longer his partner, but his parent, his rescuer, his crutch. The truth is that when a woman consistently carries what belongs to a man, she is not helping him grow. She is enabling his weakness and sacrificing her own strength. Every man must carry the weight of his own responsibilities if he is to become the kind of partner worthy of respect. When a woman takes that away from him, she robs him of the chance to rise, to mature, and to prove his character. A man who is not held accountable will never learn accountability. If he knows that no matter what happens, you will step in to clean up the mess, he has no reason to change. He has no reason to discipline himself, no reason to manage his life wisely, no reason to step into his role as a man. Instead, he becomes comfortable leaning on you, and that comfort turns into entitlement. And once entitlement enters, he will begin to expect you to carry the weight as though it is your duty. This is why so many women end up feeling drained in their relationships. They carry more than they should, they give more than they receive, and eventually they lose themselves under the load of responsibilities that were never meant to be theirs. Financial burdens, emotional labor, constant forgiveness, endless fixing of problems that are not theirs to solve. It all piles up until they no longer feel like a woman being loved, but like a caretaker being used. That is not partnership, that is imbalance. Love is not about rescuing someone from themselves. Love is not about excusing laziness, avoiding accountability, or cleaning up mess after mess. Love requires balance, and balance means each person carries their share. When a man refuses to carry his share, and the woman continues to take it on, what results is not love but dependency. And dependency poisons attraction, because respect cannot grow where responsibility does not exist. A woman cannot respect a man who refuses to stand as a man, and without respect, love loses its foundation. Many women confuse sacrifice with responsibility. They believe that sacrificing everything for him is proof of loyalty, proof of love, proof of commitment. But sacrifice without balance turns into self-destruction. A woman can support her partner without carrying his entire load. She can encourage him, inspire him, walk beside him, but she should never walk for him. She should never carry him on her back while he chooses to remain idle. Support is not the same as enabling. Support helps someone grow stronger. Enabling allows someone to remain weak. There are men who deliberately seek women who will carry their responsibilities for them. They see her kindness as an opportunity to unload their burdens. They take advantage of her nurturing nature, knowing that she will always say yes, she will always step in, she will always save the day. But every time she says yes to carrying his responsibilities, she is saying no to her own growth, no to her own peace, no to her own freedom. She is exhausting her spirit for someone who has no intention of standing on his own feet. Carrying his responsibilities also shifts the dynamic of the relationship in ways that damage intimacy. Instead of being equals, the woman begins to feel like the provider, the protector, the one who is always fixing and solving. And once she steps into that role, she loses the feminine energy that desires to be cherished and protected. Instead of leaning on him, she becomes the one he leans on, and that imbalance creates resentment. She feels unappreciated, taken for granted, and unloved, not because she gave too little, but because she gave too much in the wrong areas. A real man does not want a woman to carry his responsibilities. He wants to prove himself capable of carrying them. A real man finds pride in protecting, providing, and leading. When a woman carries what is his, she robs him of the opportunity to stand in his purpose. And if he resents her for refusing to carry his weight, it is a clear sign that he never intended to grow into a man of responsibility. In that case, she is not losing love by letting go. She is freeing herself from a weight that was never hers to bear. A woman must learn to distinguish between being supportive and being a savior. Support lifts a man while still requiring him to walk his own path. Saving him, on the other hand, makes her the path, the carrier, the rescuer. A man who refuses to take responsibility will never respect the woman who constantly bails him out. He may depend on her, but dependence is not respect, and dependence is not love. What he respects is accountability, and if she sets the boundary that she will not carry his responsibilities, she is giving him the gift of growth. Even if he doesn't see it that way at first, there is a profound danger when a woman silences her own voice in order to keep peace, to avoid conflict, or to make a man feel comfortable. The voice of a woman is not just words. It is the expression of her thoughts, her feelings, her values, her truth. To silence that voice is to diminish her existence in the relationship. Too many women are taught to keep quiet, to smile when they want to cry, to agree when they want to resist, to accept when they want to say no. They are told that being silent will keep the man happy, That silence shows obedience. That silence keeps the relationship safe. But silence does not create safety. Silence creates suffocation. When you silence your voice, you begin to lose yourself piece by piece until one day you no longer recognize the woman staring back at you. A woman's voice is her power. It is how she sets boundaries, how she communicates her needs, how she expresses her individuality. When that voice is muted, everything else begins to collapse. A man cannot respect what he cannot hear. If you never speak your truth, he will assume you have no truth. If you never express your boundaries, he will believe you have none. And if you never voice your emotions, he will treat them as if they don't exist. Silence may keep the surface calm, but beneath the surface, it creates storms of resentment, frustration, and pain. When a woman silences her voice, she becomes a background character in her own story. She begins to live by his decisions, his desires, his timing, his choices, while her own needs are buried under the weight of pleasing him. At first, it may seem like love, like compromise, like devotion, but over time it becomes an invisible cage. And in that cage, her spirit grows restless. She wonders why she feels unseen, why she feels undervalued, why she feels invisible in a relationship where she's giving everything. The answer is that she silenced the very tool that makes her visible, her voice. There are men who prefer a woman who is silent because it makes control easier. A woman who never speaks up, who never challenges, who never resists becomes convenient. She becomes predictable, manageable, easy to manipulate. But such a man does not want a partner. He wants possession. He wants someone who exists to echo his own voice, never her own. And the longer a woman stays silent in such a relationship, the deeper she reinforces the lie that her opinions, her needs, and her feelings do not matter. But the truth is, her voice was never meant to be silenced. Her voice is not an inconvenience, it is a necessity. A healthy relationship thrives on open communication. It grows when both partners can express themselves freely, when disagreements are voiced respectfully, when desires and fears are shared honestly. Without her voice, there is no balance. There is only one person steering the ship while the other simply drifts along, pretending to agree while silently drowning inside. When a woman silences her voice, she also teaches herself to settle. She convinces herself that her feelings are too much, that her needs are a burden, that her truth is better hidden. And once she accepts that lie, she begins to lower her standards, not just in the relationship, but in life. She stops asking for respect. She stops expecting loyalty. She stops dreaming big because she believes no one will listen anyway. This is how silence slowly erodes self-worth. You start by silencing yourself for him, but soon you silence yourself even in your own mind, doubting the value of your own thoughts. Every time a woman swallows her words instead of speaking them, a piece of her identity disappears. She begins to shrink, to fade, to live small. But the irony is that most men are drawn to women who are vibrant, expressive, alive. When she silences herself to keep him, she loses the very essence that made her attractive in the first place. Her silence does not secure him, it distances him. He may stay physically, but emotionally, there is nothing left to connect with. A relationship without a woman's voice is a relationship without depth. To speak is not to argue. To express is not to disrespect. To disagree is not to destroy love. In fact, it is the opposite. To speak is to give truth room to breathe. To express is to keep intimacy alive. To disagree is to reveal honesty and create understanding. Silence is not golden when it comes to your needs. It is deadly. The man who truly loves you will never silence your voice. He will listen to it, even when it challenges him. He will value it even when it differs from his own. Because he knows that your voice is a part of you, and to love you means to love all of you, including the truth you carry within. There comes a point in every woman's life when she must decide what she is truly worth, not in words but in actions. Too many times, women settle for less than they deserve because they believe that something is better than nothing, that a half love is better than loneliness, that small crumbs of affection are better than an empty table. But accepting less than you deserve is not an act of patience, it is an act of self-betrayal. Every time you settle for a man who only gives you pieces of himself, you are teaching him and teaching yourself that your standards are negotiable, that your heart can be bought cheaply, that you are willing to exchange your dignity for companionship. When you accept less, you lower the mirror of your worth. A man will only rise to the level you require of him. If your standards are high, he must elevate himself to meet them. If your standards are low, he will never feel the need to do more. By settling for less, you are telling him that his half effort is enough, that his inconsistency is acceptable, that his lack of commitment will keep you there anyway. And once he learns this, he will not suddenly change out of love. He will remain the same because you allowed it. Many women stay in relationships where they are constantly undervalued, where their love is taken for granted, where they are treated like an option instead of a priority. They tell themselves that he might change, that if they give more, he will eventually see their worth, that maybe the timing is wrong, that maybe patience will reward them. But years go by and nothing changes because the standard was set the moment they accepted less. A man does not rise when there is no requirement to rise. He only changes when he knows that your love cannot be purchased with anything less than respect, loyalty, and consistency. Accepting less than you deserve not only diminishes your value in his eyes, but also in your own. Slowly, you begin to believe that maybe this is all you can get. That maybe you are not worthy of the kind of love you dream of, that maybe your desires are too much. And once you accept that lie, you start to live beneath your potential in every area of life. You stop expecting more from others, you stop expecting more from yourself, and you shrink into a version of yourself that exists only to be tolerated, not celebrated. A woman must understand that her standards are not selfish demands. They are the boundaries that protect her worth. Refusing to accept less is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is knowing that love should uplift, not diminish. It is knowing that loyalty should be consistent, not conditional. It is knowing that effort should be mutual, not one-sided. When you demand more, you are not asking for too much. You are asking for what should be natural in a relationship built on respect. The fear of being alone often drives women to accept less than they deserve. They fear the silence, the emptiness, the long nights without someone beside them. But what they fail to realize is that loneliness in a relationship is far more painful than being alone. To lie beside someone who neglects you, to sit next to someone who ignores you, to love someone who cannot or will not give you the same in return. That is a deeper loneliness than solitude ever could be. Being alone gives you space to grow, to heal, to rediscover your worth. Being with someone who gives you less drains you, weakens you, and convinces you that you are unworthy of more. There are countless women who stayed too long in relationships where they accepted less, and they look back with regret, realizing they could have demanded more, realizing they could have walked away sooner, realizing they wasted years waiting for change that never came. But the lesson remains the same. The love you accept is the love you believe you deserve. If you believe you deserve more, you will not settle for less. If you believe you deserve loyalty, you will not accept betrayal. If you believe you deserve respect, you will not accept disregard. The standard you hold is the standard that shapes the love you receive. A man who truly values you will never offer you less than you deserve. He will not give you half love, half effort, or half commitment. He will give fully because he knows that a woman of worth cannot be kept with fragments. She requires wholeness. She requires depth. She requires consistency. And when a woman stands firmly in that truth, she creates space for the right kind of love to enter, the kind of love that does not require begging, does not require settling, does not require losing herself just to keep him.